Story 1. Telling my stepdaughter I don't love her as much as my biological daughter. I, 52F, have been married to my husband, 54M, for the last 5 years, together for 6. I have a daughter, 25F, with my late former husband, and my current husband has a daughter, 22F, from his previous marriage. My husband divorced his ex about 7 years because she was a lazy, manipulative witch, his words. Unfortunately, my stepdaughter seems to have followed in her mother's footsteps. Ever since I came into the picture, she blamed me for ruining any chance of her dad and mom ever getting back together and behaved toxically. She regularly messed up all the rooms of the house. When I would tell her to clean it up, she gave me the cliched "you're not my mom" spiel. Whenever her dad declined to give her something, she would cry crocodile tears or throw a tantrum until he gave in. She would also tell lies about me. She was a nightmare. When she turned 19, my husband finally had enough and kicked her out. It's been 3 years since, and her behavior seems to be improving a little bit, but things are still tense between her and me. Fortunately, I don't have to see her on a daily basis if I can live with it. Both my daughter and stepdaughter have children of their own. My daughter has a 2-year-old girl with her husband, while my stepdaughter has a 1-year-old son with her boyfriend. My daughter wants to save up for a house with her husband, so she asked me if I could babysit while she works. I was fine with that. I have a part-time WFH job, so I agreed to do it. My stepdaughter found out about this arrangement a few days ago, called me to ask if I could do the same for her child. She couldn't ask her bio mom because she lives in another state. I just said no. It's not that I hate her kid. It's because one child is a handful already and I don't want to give up my job, which I enjoy doing. She kept probing, but I still gave her the same response. She then tried to emotionally manipulate me by asking if I loved my bio daughter more than her. I flipped it on her and asked her if she loved her bio mom more than me. She said yeah, because she's my mom. So I told her that I likewise love my bio daughter more than her because she's my daughter. When she heard that, she lost her shit and started calling me a bunch of names. I just cut the call and blocked her number. My husband is on my side but says I shouldn't have indulged in her nonsense. I see where he's coming from, but she's an adult, and if she wants to play stupid games, then she deserves stupid prizes. I don't owe her any favors after how she's behaved and treated me over the years, but I'm wondering if I shouldn't have said what I said. Comment 1. NTA, you took her game and flipped it around on her, and boohoo, she didn't like it. Kudos to you for not saying anything worse, because she definitely would have deserved it. Comment 2. NTA. She said it herself, you are not her mother. She was already 16 when you first met. She never wanted anything to do with you and actually went out of her way to make living together miserable for you. I appreciate that she will have her side of the story, but when a child is this old when first introduced to a step-parent, and moreover, she still has her own mother, plus her attitude of trying everything to push you out of the home/relationship with her dad, you don't owe her free childcare on a regular basis. She hasn't even apologized for her years of appalling behavior, and now that she wants something from you, she knows where to find you. Nah, she's just salty she gets no free help from you. Suggest that she ask her dad? Or, she could have thought about how much help she would need and figure out if she has the local network for that before she chose to get pregnant at only 20 to 21. Comment 3. Unfortunately, the stepdaughter is old enough to know you can't build a bridge from nothing where you previously burned one down. She isn't a child anymore, she's an adult. Sometimes it is the hardest lessons learned that are the most important in life. Treat people with respect. You never know when you may be in a predicament where you need their helping hand. Even at 17, I knew that you never close a door unless you were prepared for it to never potentially open again. Story 2. Telling my maternal aunts that they should stop taking their guilt out on my dad because he's the last person who had an obligation. 3 weeks ago, after several years of no contact, my maternal aunts, both in their early 40s, reached out and asked to catch up. They made the same offer to my brother, but he turned them down. I was curious to hear what they had to say, so met up with them. I hadn't seen them since I was 11-ish. I'm now 22. We met up and they told me that my half-siblings had ended up in the care of one of my aunts last year after having a shitty time in foster care. The background is my mom cheated on my dad during their marriage. She got pregnant after me and thought the baby was his, until she was 7 months pregnant. They broke up and she moved in with the other man. My brother and I were young at the time, but not so young that we couldn't put things together. My mom ended up having 2 kids with the other man. He died suddenly when the kids were babies. Mom died when I was 11. She died from an asthma attack. The kids' paternal family wanted nothing to do with them and refused to take custody. My aunts were my mom's only family and they both had young families at the time and did not feel like they could take on 2 additional children who were so young. My dad was also asked and he didn't take them either. So the kids went into foster care. Apparently they were never adopted and did not end up with good families. My brother and I never saw them after Mom died, and we didn't see our aunts afterward either because they were so mad at our dad that things became too toxic. My brother and I never resented/blamed/hated our dad for not taking our half-siblings. Heck, we didn't even really miss seeing them. We didn't bond with them while Mom was alive and we weren't even that close to Mom after the affair and her moving in with the other man. My aunts have hated my dad all these years for not stepping up and keeping the 4 of us together and giving the kids a loving home. They said they couldn't do it and they hated that, but pointed out that our dad had money, he had the space in his home, and he could have, but he wanted to punish kids for our mom's actions. They said it was evil what he did. They were really intense about their hatred of him and made it clear they were reaching out because they thought my brother and I would hate him too and would be part of the family with our half-siblings. Not being interested in that and not liking how they talked about my dad, I told them they should stop taking their guilt out on my dad and they should accept that my dad was the last person who had any obligation to the kids. My aunts were like, how could you say that over your poor little siblings, and didn't I hate what happened to them and didn't I miss them and wish I'd had them in my life? They asked how I could say he had no obligation when he was mine and my brother's dad and he was the reason we were separated from our 2 younger siblings. I left and they texted me after saying the same stuff and saying how awful it was that I had that attitude. Comment 1. NTA. Seriously. Why do your aunts feel that your father should have any obligation to his ex-wife's spawn? He has no connection to them and no obligation towards them. Each one of your aunts could have taken one in, if it was that important to them. Clearly it wasn't. Comment 2. NTA. They are not your dad's children. While it is heartbreaking what happened to your half-siblings, it's not your father's job to raise them. For your aunts to come back into your life all these years later just to talk crap about your father, that's just gross. Like you said, he's the last person who has an obligation to those kids. Comment 3. NTA. In there, your aunts, minds they can't accept the fact that they are the logical ones to have taken in those babies. So they have to blame the person most financially able to do it, your dad. No matter that he's the one who was cheated on. No matter that he is the least likely one to take them in. The blame must rest on him because it can't possibly be their family who should do it. Their minds cannot fathom that fact. They know deep down in their hearts they are the terrible ones, and they are the ones who are guilty of serving those kids up to the foster care system. Story 3, excluding my granddaughter and son from a family vacation? So I, 65M, have 1 biological son and granddaughter from my first marriage, and 1 stepdaughter and 3 step-grandchildren from my now wife, 67F. My wife and I have been married for about 20 years now, so I have seen all of my step-grandchildren grow up since they were babies and consider them like my own. My wife and I recently had the idea to take a family vacation to Mexico. We live in the US, but due to our large family size, we couldn't afford to pay for everyone ourselves. We invited all of our kids and grandkids but told them that they would have to pay their own way if they wanted to come. I will admit I knew my stepdaughter and her kids are in a much better financial situation than my bio son and granddaughter, but I wanted to pitch them the idea regardless so that they could decide if it was something they were willing to splurge on. My bio-granddaughter is 10, so of course her dad would be the one paying for her. I gave everyone about a month to decide and my stepdaughter quickly agreed. My son was taking longer to respond, so I would frequently call him and my granddaughter trying to persuade them to come. They eventually declined, saying they really wanted to go but just couldn't afford to. My wife, stepdaughter, step-grandchildren, and I all left for Mexico a few months later and had a grand time. We took a bunch of photos and upon returning, I showed them to my son and granddaughter, describing all the fun we had and telling them I wish they could have been there. My son and granddaughter got quiet, and after they had left, my son angrily texted me saying that my granddaughter started crying because she had really wanted to go and that he didn't appreciate me rubbing the vacation and my favoritism in their faces. I didn't think I had done anything wrong, but now their reactions have me questioning if I'm TA for excluding them from the family trip. ETA, okay, I get it, I'm TA, although I don't appreciate all the comments leaping to make awful assumptions about me and my family based off of 5 paragraphs. I love my son and granddaughter equally to the rest of my family and definitely am not abandoning them for my wife and her family. I did cheat on my ex-wife, which was the ultimate cause for our divorce, but given the circumstances we had an amicable split and I happily got to see my son on the weekends. I didn't offer to pay for my son or granddaughter because I wanted to be fair to my stepdaughter, who has to foot the bill for herself and her children. That would be playing favorites in my opinion. And my wife and I specifically wanted to go to Mexico. The whole family vacation part did not come to our minds until after we had already decided on the destination spot. Also, my son and granddaughter had 1 month to decide if they wanted/could afford to attend the trip. I did not blindside them a month before the trip was supposed to start. If my son thought it was something he could afford, he would have had 4/5 months to save up for the trip and request off of work. Comment 1. YTA. I think the biggest issue for me here is the way you were showing your son and granddaughter the pictures and describing your adventures, and then throwing in the "oh, but we wish you could have came." At that point, those words were unnecessary. You had just been describing all the fun you had had without them. At 10, your granddaughter is old enough to pick up on the fact that neither she, nor her dad, had been on your mind during your trip at all. Showing them those pictures and telling them those stories was cruel, and adding that throwaway line was like adding salt to a paper cut. Your son was right. That was unnecessary. Comment 2. YTA. If you really wished your son and granddaughter could have been there with you, knowing his financial situation, I'm sure it didn't change all those times you called to check in for the trip, then you should have offered to pay even a part of the cost. Could have called it a gift and had memories with them to last. Bigger whole move rubbing your fun vacation in their faces. And the comment. Absolutely disgusting. You are toxic and are showing disgusting favoritism. Story 4. Punishing my daughter for not helping us search for my niece. My daughter 17 and niece 6 are the only grandkids in our family. My niece was a rainbow baby and the only child in our family. I found out about my daughter when she was 9, so we missed most of her childhood, so naturally she gets a lot of attention. My daughter is clearly jealous of her and has been very mean towards her. A few days ago we all went shopping and my niece went missing in the crowd. Naturally we all panicked and started to search for her while my daughter was on her phone playing. I told her that niece is missing and she said good, I hope she is not found, and went back to her phone, so when we got home I grounded her for a month. She thinks I was the asshole. Edit, so I'm gonna give you a quick update while I figure out how to deal with her now. I decided to have a conversation with her about her feelings and behavior towards her cousin. We didn't have much of a conversation because she kept crying and screaming at me, listing all the times everyone ignored her or favored my niece. I honestly didn't realize how awful we have been to her. She is my little girl, and I never meant to make her feel like this. I'm going to talk to my family and tell them we need to throw her a late birthday party since we had to skip her birthday because my niece was very sick. It will be a day only about her, and from now on we have to be more careful about how we treat her. I don't know what to do other than that, and I probably won't be giving any more updates since I have to go figure out what to do now. Comment 1. You don't sound like you like your daughter at all, to be honest. You're acting like your family can't have a great relationship with her like your niece because she was older. There's plenty of love in everyone's heart for all kids, no matter the age. Being a rainbow baby doesn't mean a kid needs to be put on a pedestal. I'm sorry, but your niece is not your daughter. I'm not taking up for her because it wasn't okay at all. But it sounds like you need to take a step back and look at your own actions with your daughter to find out why her actions are this way. Comment 2. If your math is correct, your daughter was around your family for 2 years before she was presumably dropped like a bad habit when the new baby, the one you called the only child in the family, did you forget your daughter was a child for a long time too? Arrived. It sounds like your extended family is tight-knit but treats your daughter like an outsider and you're doing nothing to stand up for her. I'd be bitter too. I bet she watches all sorts of favoritism you've conveniently left out of your post. Just because she's not a child doesn't mean she can't be made to feel included in other ways. Apologize to her for how she's being treated and figure out how to make her more welcome in your life. YTA as the adult in this situation.